Yo, what up? Why am I talking like a black guy when I'm white? I am Black Dragon, though. I'm Caleb Jones. This is Alpha Male 2.0, freedom-focused lifestyle design for men. Let's talk about online dating. I haven't talked about that in a little bit on this podcast. There are 4 different ways in which you can meet women, as I've discussed before. There's online dating, night game, day game, and social circle game. And my area of expertise and speciality has been, at least for the last 13 years or so, online dating. As a matter of fact, I became a, quote, known name on the internet as Black Dragon because of my online dating blogs and books and forums and all that fun stuff. So, how has online dating changed in the last 13 years? Because it has changed. It's changed radically in some ways. And in some ways, it's changed for the worse. In 1 or 2 ways, it's changed for the better. In many ways, it has changed that is not good or bad, but requires a new thought process and requires you to adjust. Now, first thing, before I get into this stuff, is that you need to understand, particularly as an Alpha Male 2.0, but as a man, you need to understand that the only constancy in life is change. We live in a society of rapid change. Things are going to constantly change. 5 years from now, it's going to be very different than today. Today is very different than it was just 5 years ago, isn't it? And for you to have this more right-wingish conservative attitude where I want things to be the way they are forever and I never want them to change, and if they change, I'm going to be upset. And I'm just going to be pissed off all the time and complain all the time and frown at the world like a lot of my right-wing brothers do. They have a tendency to just be pissed off and furious because things aren't the way they were back in the 1970s or 1980s or 1950s. God damn it. And that cannot be the attitude you have. I understand that attitude. I am a child of the 1980s and I love the 80s. And there's a lot I miss about the 80s, a lot of good stuff. There was a lot of pro-masculine stuff back in the 80s that just doesn't exist anymore and probably will never again in the Western world. And so I understand your pain. I get it. I understand it. But to go through life with this attitude of if things change, if certain things get worse, if certain things get better, or if certain things get worse, but new, better things replace those things, that's bullshit. I'm just going to scream and yell and bitch and moan about how horrible everything is. And you'll see a lot of this, or at least some of this, regarding online dating. A lot of guys complain that online dating is harder today than it was 5 years ago, really 10 years ago, 15 years ago, and how it's horrible and terrible and nothing works anymore. And by the way, it's all untrue. I'll talk about that in a podcast. And that is the attitude that you don't want to have. That just because things change, now I'm pissed off and I can't get laid anymore, which is not true. Just have an attitude that welcomes change and moves with time. The best example I heard about this is that you don't want to be stuck in time. You want to move with time. If you're going to be stuck in time and plant your foot and behave as if it's, 1964 forever, you're not going to be very happy. And Alpha Male 2.0 is about long-term happiness. So you got to roll with this shit. Part of being a tough, masculine, robust, strong man in the modern era is the ability to roll with change instead of screaming and bitching and fighting about change. Cool? Cool. Okay. Now, has online dating become more difficult? Yes, it has certainly become more difficult. The basic breakdown was in the early to mid 2000s, 2005. I remember back in 2005, I was still married, my first marriage way back then, talking to like beta males, like total dorks who would go on Match.com and just bang women left and right. I was talking to a guy who had sex with 5 different women within a few months on Match.com. And this was a normal everyday dude. No pickup artist skills, no nothing. Because that's how easy online dating was back then. I didn't get started with online dating myself until 2007. And I had a rough year in 2007 in terms of learning dating skills. So it wasn't really about 2008 when I really took off. And I did online dating hardcore for, that's difficult to say, hardcore. 2008, yes, 2009, 2010, 2011, way into about 2000, I would say 2015, maybe 2016 before I started tapering off a little bit. And even through those changes, around 2010 is when things really started to drop. And they dropped a lot. Now, they haven't dropped a lot since about 2000, I would say 15. So I don't think online dating has gotten any more difficult in the last 5 years or so. I think it's been about the same. I haven't seen a big drop in results from 2015, a big drop in results anyway, from 2015, 16-ish to now, 2020. Lots of things have happened over the years. A lot of online dating sites have gone out of business. Things like MySpace, which was great, is long gone. Way back in the day, we had Yahoo Personals, long gone. Some websites or web services that used to be one way are now completely different. OkCupid is completely unrecognizable to what it was 10 years ago. And they changed their algorithm, made it much harder. And things like the U.S. government passed a law called FOSTA, which is a sex trafficking thing. And that actually induced certain websites like Craigslist to completely remove their dating services. Facebook was supposed to come out with some kind of dating thing, and it kind of has, but it kind of fizzled. I haven't heard much about it. I really haven't worked on it at all. I haven't even looked at it because no one else is looking at it. And online dating response rates have gone down. Now, here's the other side of the coin, and I mentioned this a lot. All response rates and all types of game have gone down. So while online dating was getting worse, and it has, night game guys were complaining on their blogs about how when they go out to bars at night, it's all dudes. It's a sausage fest. It's mostly guys. And you'd see night game guys post pictures like a 5-year-old picture of a bar and then a 5-year later picture of the same bar at the same time with full of people. And they would circle all the women in pink and all the men in blue. And, 5 years ago, it was like half and half. And today it's like all dudes and like 3 girls. So night game guys bitch about that. Day game guys have bitched a lot about how harder it is, especially with things like Me Too and the negative connotations of things like pickup artist techniques and pickup and things like that. So the only type of game, in my opinion, that hasn't gotten worse is social circle game, which I actually think is in the middle of a renaissance. I think guys who are really good at social circle game are actually doing better. And things like Instagram have actually helped these guys. So if you're an extrovert, if you're a social circle guy, I would look into that strongly if that's something of interest, because I think of the 4 game types, social circle game is the only one that hasn't gotten harder and in some respects has gotten easier. But I digress. Let's go back to online dating. Is it impossible to get laid with online dating now? You'll see guys, it's impossible. You can't do it anymore. No, wrong. On a weekly basis, I talk to men who are getting laid right now, getting laid a lot right now with online dating. Well, maybe not right this second as I release this podcast because we're right in the middle of a quarantine, a worldwide quarantine and lockdown because of coronavirus. So right now, not so much, but normally, yes. And this will be over in, shortly in a few weeks / months and things will get back to normal. And yes, guys are doing this right now. Just a few months ago, I did a big poll regarding men who had had sex with real women, at least 3 real women recently, and what dating sites they used and what cities they were located in. And tons and tons and tons of guys were reporting success, including with apps that a lot of other guys said was, quote, impossible, like OkCupid. I've had guys say, it's impossible to get laid with OkCupid. It's impossible. It's impossible, Black Dragon. It's impossible. And in that survey, OkCupid was the number 2 app, the number 2 top app that guys are using to get laid. So, wrong. Now, let's talk about Tinder. The joke I've told about Tinder was amazing for about a year and a half when it first came out when it first got popular, I should say, about, 5-6 years ago now. Tinder was great for about a year and a half, and then a whole bunch of attention whores took it over, and now a lot of women are there just to talk to guys and show off for guys and are using it almost like an Instagram. Matter of fact, one of the worst things that happened to online dating, in my opinion, is that apps like OkCupid and Tinder were able to tie in to Instagram so you could actually post your Instagram photos on your dating profile, which really made the dating app an extension of your social media, and social media is not a fucking dating app, unfortunately. Now, there are some good things about online dating. I will talk about that a little later. But those are the bad things and those are the negatives. Yes, it has gotten harder. What can you do about this? Well, I can tell you from all the guys who are getting laid successfully online, including myself, although I'm not doing a lot of it lately these days. Here's what you got to do. Number 1, top of the list, you've got to do everything correctly. You can't wing this stuff. Back in the olden days, you could take a dumb picture of yourself standing in your mirror in your bathroom with your phone and kind of make it work. You could kind of get laid doing that. You could kind of get dates. You can't anymore. I used to say that it was recommended years ago. I used to say it was recommended to use if not a professional photographer, like a photography student you could find on Craigslist with a good camera and take some shots of you and all that stuff. Now that is required. You need to have the best photos you can take. And that means a professional. When I say professional, it can be an amateur, but a photography person with an amazing camera taking hundreds of pictures of you and picking out the 1, 2, 3, or 4 best photos for your swipe apps, for your profiles and all that good stuff. That is now required. In other words, the things that used to be optional are now required. You can't just wing this stuff anymore. You've got to do this perfectly. If you don't know where to get started, go to the website onlinedatingsuccessnow.com. That's where I sell one of my books, The Ultimate Online Dating Manual, and I take you through step by step on exactly the scientifically proven techniques to get you the maximum amount of response rates and the maximum number of dates. Now, once you're on that date, then you need the other book, Get to Sex Fast, gettosexfast.com, on what to do on that date. But to get the dates, Ultimate Online Dating Manual, I tell you exactly, step by step, exactly what to do. Okay, next thing. And I've mentioned this before. You have to be on as many dating sites and apps as you possibly can, as possibly apply to your city. You can't be on just one or two apps. You can't just be on Tinder and hope that works. No, you got to be on Tinder and Bumble and OkCupid and Zeus. Be on everything. ChristianMingle.com, all the other weird ones. Anything that might apply to you in your region, you need to be on all these things and do everything correctly. Hinge, Hitch, if it applies to your country, Badoo, Plenty of Fish, all that stuff. Happen, Coffee Meets Bagel, Match.com, whatever the hell. Down, Blender, there's a billion of them. You should be on all of them. All of them that apply to your city. And if you're not sure, do your own research. You need to be on all of them. Gone is the day where you could rely on one or two apps, unless you're doing sugar daddy game, which I'll cover in a second. Okay? Next thing is if you are a younger guy, especially if you're an extrovert, you're a cool guy, got a lot of friends, or you look good or whatever, you should strongly consider doing Instagram game. Or in some cases, Facebook game, which is a little more difficult. Instagram game is better. There are a lot of guys who have mastered the art of meeting women using social media like Instagram. And I'm running into more and more guys and more women who have met guys who they're now having sex with over Instagram. And Instagram is free. Now, there's a whole process to it. I don't have time to go through it in this podcast, but social media game is an option. And that's one of the good things that has happened to online dating is now you can leverage apps like Instagram and to a lesser degree, Facebook, to meet women when the dating apps and dating sites fail you. It's very, very, very good. That's for younger guys, even older guys too. Now, if you're an older guy, you can choose to use an option that is new in the last few years that makes it very, very easy for older men, especially older men with some extra money, to get laid with super hot women, and that is sugar daddy game. Now, that is beyond the scope of this podcast, but that is a subset of online dating, using sugar daddy dating sites to meet women. And there's two types of sugar daddy game. There's sugar daddy game, where you pay women for sex. How much is up to you. There's techniques on how to get those numbers down. I talk about that again in the online dating manual and in the Ultimate Younger Woman Manual. You can do a Google search for that. That's at oldermenyoungerwomen.com, separated by hyphens. I go through that in detail. There's several chapters that cover sugar daddy game. Or you can do salt daddy game, which a lot of guys do. Some guys in my SMIC program do that, where you meet women using sugar daddy sites, but you don't actually pay them. It is a more advanced version of online dating. You have to kind of have your shit together. You have to be decent looking. You have to have a decent amount of skills on how to do that. You can't just wing that stuff, but that works too. You do that too. I have done both. I've done all three. I have done a lot of online dating in my life. I've done sugar daddy game. I've done salt daddy game. I've done all three. They all work depending on where you are in life. Now, there are rules, in my opinion, regarding paying for sex. I'm not going to get into those today. It's a very big topic. I have an article, the Black Dragon blog. You can Google Black Dragon blog. When is it okay to pay for sex? And I lay out two very specific criteria and I explain why. If you don't match that criteria, you probably shouldn't pay for sex. But again, I'm just saying that it's an option and it's a very easy option for very attractive women. Again, that's one of the advantages and one of the good things that have occurred with online dating. So sugar daddy dating for older guys and Instagram/Facebook game for younger guys. These are new avenues that we didn't have 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 years ago. We didn't have anything like that stuff. I mean, it was all just online. If you couldn't make online dating work, you were kind of fucked. Today you have other options. Kind of nice. Now, let's switch gears for a second and let me talk about trends that I have noticed. New trends. Because I've been paying very close attention to this. I've been part of this world intimately for, 13 years now. And I will give you the trends that I am noticing that have occurred over the last 13 years and trends that I will think continue into the future. In no particular order, but this is the big one right off the top of the list, is that there are many more older men, younger woman relationships. This is not nearly as weird or taboo as it was many years ago. And this was difficult many years ago, and a lot of women wouldn't even consider it many years ago, 10, 15, 20 years ago. It happened, but it was much more unusual. Now it is much, much, much more normal. Now, there are many reasons for this. I'll give you the top several. Number one, economically, it is much harder to be an independent young woman these days just because of basic economics. Wages have been stagnant in my entire lifetime, and I'm almost 50. So American wages, as adjusted for inflation, have not gone up at all since like 1973. I was born in 72. Pretty bad. So it's getting difficult. This college loan bullshit, the college loan bubble where women are going into college and getting these gigantic college loans. They leave college or whatever, and now they can't pay these fucking loans. They're $50,000 in debt and they're 23 years old. They need help paying that stuff. Well, there you go. Another big issue with this is not just financial, but it is also cultural. As I've written about a lot, men are becoming children. Men are regressing in a way that a lot of women aren't. And now have real statistics to back this up. Women in their 20s who don't have kids now make more money than men in their 20s who don't have kids. That is horrible. That is unacceptable in my opinion. And it's going to get worse. Men are getting worse, not better. You've got guys, in their 30s spending time out riding their fucking skateboards. Guys in their 30s doing this shit. You didn't have that 20 years ago. Men are regressing. They're becoming man children, and younger women kind of don't like that. So younger women have been forced to go way up in age to find a, quote, normal guy with his own house and his own car and a decent job who is actually somewhat responsible. They got to go up past age 35 now to do this, whereas before they never had to do this. So that's one of the big trends that are changing, and online dating has certainly reflected this, as has real life dating. Another trend that I consider very, very good, this is certainly something that I have seen, this relates to online dating as well, is that women are much more open in non-monogamy than they were 13 years ago when I first got started with this stuff. So way back in 2007, when I first started meeting women online, and I was trying to convince women to get into these non-monogamous relationships with me, FB, MLTR, OLTR, when I was trying to get women to do this, it was a lot of work. It took a lot of convincing. I had to work really hard because women say, oh, I would never do that. That's disgusting. That's terrible. And I'd say, but look, monogamy doesn't work. Everyone cheats, everyone fights, everyone breaks up, you get divorced. And they would say, oh no, if you find the right guy, it'll all work out. And women were saying that to me 13 years ago. Do they say that to me now? Do I hear women say that now? No. Actually, they say the opposite. So it is now much easier. You don't need a lot of convincing, provided you do everything else correctly. All the relationship models that I follow, all the Alpha 2.0 frames that I talk about, you don't have to do a lot of convincing these days. And that's women of all ages. I'm not just talking about younger women. Women in their 30s and 40s are now like, well, shit, I guess he's right. You don't have to worry about this too difficult. So now you have guys, for the first time ever, on online dating sites stating blatantly in their profiles that they don't do monogamy. I would have never recommended that just 4 or 5, 6 years ago. I don't think I would still recommend it today, especially if you were new or at the intermediate level. But there are guys doing this right now and making it work and getting laid. Amazing. Because it's a much more relaxed, non-monogamous dating environment out there than it was just 10 years ago, 13 years ago when I got started with this stuff. I mean, again, I gotta tell you guys, man, it was hard work to convince women to get into these relationships. Today, it's fucking easy, including women who are over 33 with high ASD. It's not very difficult at all. So that certainly is another aspect of online dating that has become easier. See, it's not all bad. A lot of it's good. Here's something else. This is a relatively newer trend just in the last few years. And this is something that is bad for society and bad for men in general, but good for men like you and me, good for Alpha 2.0s. And that is a lot of men are getting discouraged and are just taking themselves out of the dating pools. A lot of beta males, a lot of incels, a lot of the angry MGTOWs. Now I got to clarify that because there's two kinds of MGTOWs. There are the happy, pro-sex, pro-woman, pro-money MGTOWs. Matter of fact, I am one of these men, or at least I have been before I got married, even though I have an OLTR marriage. But there's the other type of MGTOW, which is the angry MGTOW who hate women and women are sluts and women are whores and women are terrible. They should be like they were in the 1950s and it's just not worth it anymore. And I'm just not going to have sex anymore, or I'm just going to spend the rest of my life banging hookers. Those guys are taking themselves out of the dating market. They're not even going to the online dating sites. They're not even trying. They go on, these are the guys who go on Instagram and see a few pictures of really ripped, good-looking six-pack guys and go, well, I could never compete with that. Fuck that. I'll just jerk off to porn. And they don't even try, which drives the number of men in the dating pool down, which decreases your competition and also makes women a little more antsy in terms of finding higher quality men. This is a good thing. And I've noticed this just in the last, I would say 4 years. And this is going to get much worse, as in better going forward. Men are going to get more depressed about this, not better. It's going to get worse for these men, not better, which is a good thing for you. As always, as is the case so often with Alpha Male 2.0, if you stay the course in terms of your dating and relationship life when other men are bailing out, and in terms of this coronavirus thing, I've mentioned this before, if you stay the course and focus on your business during this crisis while other men are just bailing out and saying, oh my God, this is terrible, or I'm just going to be bored for the next few weeks, you will reap the rewards more so than if men were normal and competing against you in the marketplace, both in the business marketplace and in the sexual marketplace. So less men participating in these marketplaces is a good thing for you. It's a good thing for me. And as always, I'm talking to you as the individual here. I do not talk to society, because I'm sure people are going to hear this and go, but what about society? Society blankety blankety blank. I don't care about society. I don't talk about society. I'm not talking to society. I'm talking to you. This is a good thing for you. This is another word of encouragement for you if you're having trouble with the online dating stuff. Don't worry. A lot of men are having the same trouble and are giving up and bailing out, and that's fucking great. And this is going to get better for us as monogamy continues to decline. I just saw a study done by a hedge fund, and the typical percentage that I quote as the actual real divorce rate, the odds that you will get divorced if you get traditionally monogamously married, is around 76%. They are showing it as now 78%. So as the divorce rate continues to go up, as monogamy continues to get worse, as the economy continues to get worse, with or without this coronavirus thing, this is going to provide less men in both marketplaces and more women in both marketplaces and higher quality women, or at least easier access to higher quality women in these marketplaces because of all these things. As always, instead of freaking out about the collapse of the Western world, you should smile at it and exploit it and use it to benefit yourself and your family instead of crying all the time and bitching and moaning. Online dating is the same way, and that is the mechanism. And to this day, until they come up with something else, online dating is the number one best mechanism for the typical guy to get results in his woman life in terms of bringing new women into his life, other than blatantly paying for hookers or sugar babies. Other than that, it is still the best mechanism. The typical guy is not going to even try night game, and very few are going to try day game. But you have the ability to make online dating work still to this day. I would suggest that you focus on that. Unless you hate online dating and you don't like online dating, in that case, please stick with day game or night game or social circle game. I've said many times that I am not a zealot about this. I don't care what game style you choose, as long as you choose one and get good at it. So you've already made the decision that you want to focus on night game, day game, and social circle game. That's great. Please do that. If you haven't made that decision, look at online dating, do everything right. Get my book if you need it. Join the SMIC program. If you need extra help, join SMIC.com. And I will see you very soon. Bye.